How significant is it that 18 Arab nations have now turned against another Arab nation? Are Assad's days numbered?
Well, you know, Bill, over in Europe, the bankers have replaced two premiers, democratically elected. The Arab League, well, it's a bunch of dictators, and they want to suspend another dictator. I think the Arab League is pretty meaningless, except the Western media seem to love the story. But I think the massive demonstrations in support of Assad versus the casualty figures and the general context make this a very, very worrying and disturbing time for the Middle East.
You talk about that support for Assad. We've seen those pictures of thousands rallying in support of him. Still, the West seems to be ignoring that. Is that because perhaps they don't see this as genuine support for Assad? Maybe perhaps carefully staged managed display for the international media?
I think Hezbollah's victory against Israel in 2006, widely seen as allied, of course, to the Syrian government, had a big effect on these American governments, on these American and American client governments, because the way that the West wants to perceive what is happening is perhaps a Libyan scenario. One former MI6 agent was quoted recently in the past week or so as saying that what actually may follow may be something like an Afghanistan scenario if Western interests plus Saudi Arabia, because it really is Saudi Arabia, Turkey and Qatar that's doing the running here, if a military conflict actually begins.
And there really could be an appetite for military intervention, bearing in mind what you've just said and, of course, the implications geopolitically. Obviously, Syria, a very sensitive part of the region.
Well, absolutely. And the idea that they think it's the great game, you know, we're celebrating commemorating Remembrance Sunday here, I'm wearing a peace poppy here. It's not after the First World War. This isn't post-Ottoman politics we're dealing with. This is very dangerous indeed. And the fact that many Syrian soldiers have died in the conflict, they don't normally report that here. They just say it's civilians. Where are they getting the weapons from? Lockheed Martin, exhibiting in the Dubai airfair, said profits are up. They said profits are very good in the Middle East at the moment because of all these dangers. There's something very dangerous about this entire situation, and it could rapidly affect Western interests to the detriment.
Russia, as we've just been reporting, has been actively trying to mediate peace in Syria for months. And, of course, the head of Russia's Orthodox Church, he's currently there. And during his meeting with Patriarch Kirill, President Assad thanked Russia for its role in supporting the Syrian people. Is this an indication that international efforts really could make an impact, though, or is it too late?
That's right. President Assad finished his meeting with the Patriarch a few hours ago. It's obvious that Russia doesn't want a military conflict. The foreign minister, Mr. Lavrov, said as much. And China obviously don't either. They won't be using a UN resolution. What I think I fear, and what many analysts may be fearing at the moment, is that a Saudi-backed proxy war will continue, and there will be an insurgency that is fighting in Syria against the Assad government and will continue to cause instability in Syria and beyond. And this will be a sort of slow burn phenomena, with the United States and Europe taking a kind of backseat. One mustn't also forget that Turkey has been actively involved and has even told its diplomatic staff, and as I understand it, is advising its own citizens to leave Syria. So Turkey's playing a game here too, and the media is playing a massive game. Qatar's television station Al Jazeera very obviously wanting the fall of Assad at the moment, and the Western media too.
Isn't the fall of Assad in the interests of those people who are reportedly being persecuted by his forces? The UN saying something like over 3,500 civilians are dying. Is that not a reason for some form of intervention now? Because clearly it seems that Assad's troops, he himself, is not listening to this international condemnation and continues with this persecution of those people who are opposing him.
Obviously, the fall of Bashar Assad will be welcome to those he's persecuting, but what for the dangers for the region? What the chief danger here is the rise of Salafist Islamic movements in this region, and Saudi Arabia is backing them. We're hearing all the intelligence sources are saying that the Saudis are sending in arms. Otherwise, how is it that Syrian troops are being killed? So many Syrian troops are being killed by these seemingly civilian protesters. We don't get so much of the mobile footage of those shots. So yes, but then again, is Assad really in control of Syria? That's a question I often ask when I was in Syria, because the way the Syrian government works is quite mysterious. And we all know that he has been too slow at the reforms that he's kept promising. But it's up to other forces in the Syrian regime to realize that they are fighting a grand game of opponents here, and they better come up with a proper strategy rather than thinking the status quo will succeed.
You're saying he's been slow in those reforms. He's made indications, and indeed to the Arab League, that he is trying to make some sort of change there. But with his position now, though, any change he makes, is it not, though, going to be too late and we will see Assad go? Just briefly.
I don't think we are going to see Assad go in the short term. Always a dangerous thing to make predictions like that, but this isn't a Libyan scenario. This is liable to be something like an Afghanistan or Iraq scenario if there are foreign forces involved. So Assad, I think, will be leading Syria for a little time yet.
Always interesting to hear your perspective. Thanks so much, Afshin. Afshin Rattansi joining us live there from London.